Hey guys, it's us. We're back. Welcome to Calder's Calling. We are the Calder Times flagship podcast and your premier podcast destination for everything surrounding the American Hockey League. My name is Jay Foster. I'm joined today by Corey Swartz and Dina Weinheimer. Like I said, the gang's all back together. Don't worry about the fact that it's February 26th. Do not worry about the fact that this is my second time doing this because somebody, I'm not going to name names, forgot to hit the go live button. But I thought we'd have some fun. It's Wednesday. Everyone's great. The weather is great for me. I don't know what the weather is like for you guys, but it is delightfully sunny here, and there's AHL hockey. So let's kick it off. We're going to talk about some of the games that are going on tonight. We're going to catch up with what's going on around the league. We're probably going to complain about the Rochester Americans, who won't lose anything. But let's start off. I'm going to hand it over to Dina. We've got a couple of trades to discuss, right, Dina?
We do. But first, I'm sorry if you tried to tune in on X, formerly known as Twitter. I just got an alert saying that we have to have a premium account to go live on that. So
thanks, Elon.
Yeah. Just, my 2 cents about that. You can read my body language, but we are live on YouTube and Facebook. So first of all, we're going to take it back to a couple of days ago where the Anaheim Ducks did the thing where they traded away our favorite player of all time, future considerations, to the Detroit Red Wings for, I'm going to butcher the name, Ville Husso, goaltender. So he is immediately going to the San Diego Gulls. Only he's been in 13 games with Grand Rapids this season, going 8-4-0 with a 2.7 goals against and 912 save percentage and 2 shutouts. And he also went 9 games with the Detroit Red Wings. So, pretty respectable goaltender there, all rookie team back in 2017, 2018. So it's just kind of funny that nothing went the other way there.
This is a pure salary dump for the Red Wings, is the thing. They've been rolling. I'm sure Andrew Rinaldi will have more insight into this from the Red Wings side, but they've been rolling approximately 1 million goalies all season long.
Yep.
And he's been making, I think, $3.75 million to play in the AHL, which is a not insignificant chunk of change in this economy. Makes a ton of sense for the Ducks side. I believe their starting goalie, Kalle Klang, is out month to month. They've got Oscar Dansk there right now, I believe, but he can only do so much.
Yes.
I know, we love Oscar Dansk on this podcast.
Dansk Revolution. Miss that guy.
Yeah, this is a great move. The Gulls want to make the playoffs. I don't know if they will. ? We'll get into that when we do a little bit of a roundup of the Pacific Division. Gulls currently sitting in 9th. I believe 8 teams make the playoffs, so it's still very much in play, which is probably really exciting for both the Gulls organization and also the Gulls fans because it's been a minute. But yeah, this makes a ton of sense for the Ducks, and the Red Wings decided to reunite Future Considerations with his brother, Future Considerations, who they received in the Jake Wallman trade over the summer. So a real family reunion there, and everything's A-okay for the Gulls.
I love it when GMs come together to just make the family reunions happen. It's so heartwarming. I love it. And Jay, speaking of Rochester can't lose anything, they're already up 1-0 against the Rochester American, or against themselves. Against the Wilkes-Barre Penguins. And
it's fine.
Ryan
I have a whole thing planned about the Rochester Americans. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yes.
Instead of Corey's rant of the day, we're going to be doing Jay's rant of the day because the Rochester Americans are making me feel insane. But we got another trade, right?
Yes, and this one actually came out today. So the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Nashville Predators, which I think a lot of us that follow hockey have a lot of feelings about how things are in Nashville this season. So they have swapped forwards Anthony Angelo from the Preds in exchange for forward Jesse Ylonen. Angelo, 7 years pro. He has 7 goals and 7 assists in 41 games for the Milwaukee Admirals this season. And he was a 5th-round pick in Pittsburgh back in 2014. Ylonen, 8 goals, 17 assists for 25 points in 47 games with the Syracuse Crunch, former second rounder in 2018, was originally with the Montreal Canadiens. So that's 2 quick home changes for Ylonen. He was all of 23-24 in the NHL with Montreal, and now he is went down to Milwaukee, and now he's off to Syracuse.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought he was still with Laval. So when I saw this trade, I was like, when did this happen? But this is a real, and like you might have a little bit more insight on this than I do, but this to me feels like a real, let's just swap 2 guys and see what happens trade. You know, you get a bunch of them this time of year, guys that are maybe not quite fitting in the AHL. But you don't want to lose it for nothing. So you call around, you're like, hey, do you have a guy that you think needs a change of scenery? And you just do a swap and see what happens. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But this feels like a real, let's just swap 2 guys. Guy swap, if you will. Which
and
I find our episode title.
Guy swap. Well, I mean,
there you go.
Just from the North Division standpoint, Syracuse is in a tight race against the Belleville Senators now that we're in late February, we are talking playoff implications. Syracuse in a pretty stacked North Division again, because why should anybody in this area have nice things? Syracuse and Belleville. Syracuse has 55 points in 50 games, where Belleville has 2 games in hand with 48, and they have 2 fewer points at 53. So Syracuse, why not bring in someone that has that kind of experience, NHL experience on a bubble team? Let's get them up there, get a little bit of leadership in that room, and see if they can't solidify that. I mean, just for context, the next closest team would be the 4th place Cleveland Monsters with 62 points. So there's a bit of a 7-point gap there, and Syracuse only has 1 game in hand. So
it's the stupidest time of the year, which is the time of the year when I look at the North Division and ask if the Monsters can go back to the Central.
Yes, please.
I missed the Central Division.
If the Monsters were in the Central Division, they'd be 2nd place, 1 point above Grand Rapids.
Yeah, and I actually have a better point percentage than 1st place in the Central Division right now. They've got a 608 points percentage. Milwaukee Admirals are leading the division. They have a 594. The North Division is stupid. We can't get into it right now, but my friend Scott Matler, who we've had on the show before, he covers the Laval Rocket. We will just text each other, like, out of context, maybe 2-3 times a week, and it'll just be like, man, the North is stupid. And I'll be like, yes, the North is stupid. And then we'll do it again 3 days later, because this division is too good and I don't like it. I would like to be somewhere else.
And meanwhile, Corey is sitting over near Hershey, Pennsylvania with his team again at the first of the Atlantic, just because
I was
the
told
sky
the Bears
is
were
blue.
disappointing this year, and I feel like I've been lied to, or at the very least gaslit, because what gives?
It's an interesting story, guys. I think that Jay is a little closer to the truth. It's not quite. It's a very weird season in Hershey, because when you look at it from, like, the standings board, you're like, oh, they're in first place, like everything's got to be good. But it's starting to get better, I think. But like, if you look at all of Hershey's recent scores, 5-4 is their favorite final score to win by. And as you guys probably remember from last year, that was kind of the opposite of how they were. They had 2, goalies that were finished number 1 and 2 overall in the AHL amongst goaltenders. and you wouldn't even find them amongst the top 20 right now, which is a drastic showing. I mean, it's actually a fun stat. I meant to keep track of this that I have not kept up with, but they have already almost given up as many goals. Yeah, actually, they're right there. They have given up one less goal as of today than they had all of last season. 151 overall in 72 games and 150 as we're talking here, and my standings board has failed to load on me, unfortunately. 150 goals against through 50 games this season. So it's an easy way to tell you with 22 games to go that's not quite the defensive masterclass that it was last season. But the silver lining that I think you kind of look to at this point in the season is saying like, hey, they're still finding ways to win. They're playing a lot of, teams that are hungry and they're finding ways to win. This past weekend in Charlotte was the first time in I think since early to mid January that they finally won a game while allowing less than 3 goals in a game. So it's been just kind of drastically different, and you can kind of see it in the division standings. It's much closer. Overall, I think like your 6 teams that you're seeing in the Atlantic, just to kind of zoom out a little bit on everything. The 6 teams you see that are in it right now are probably going to be the ones you see in mid-April that are in it. I mean, the 7th and 8th team are pretty out of it. If I'm a Hartford Wolfpack fan, I'm really upset because I think their season may have just been kind of, stuck a fork in this past week with the Rangers recalling like half their team just to practice.
Everyone on the Rangers is dead. So
all my friends are dead.
Yeah, all my AHL players are called up. Like,
gee, yeah, I've been there before.
Right, like I've seen this movie.
Yeah, it was right over like a really important matchup with Springfield. I think it was last week at this point where it was just sort of like, oh, I guess we're just not going to be able to even put a foot forward, let alone our best foot forward. But your 6 teams here are probably going to be the ones you see in mid-April. But as you can see, there's a gap of 10 points that separates first from 6th. And a lot of these teams are kind of caught up in the middle of that from like 5th to 2nd. It's a difference of 4 points. And so there's, 4 teams in the midst of that battle, one of them being Wilkes-Barre, who we're kind of keying in on tonight. Wilkes-Barre has a few more games in hand than most. They have 2 going into this game. So if they were to win both today and on Friday, you'd suddenly have a matchup where they're playing Hershey on Saturday, and it'll be a battle for whoever's going to lead the Atlantic Division at this point. They'll all be caught up in games. I think Hershey will be ahead. Surely Wilkes-Barre will be off on Sunday while the Bears are playing. So it'll just keep being 1 or 2 games off. But, it could be a close battle, depending on how the chips fall. The Bears have been just barely able to kind of keep making that lead look good. And as I say that about Wilkes-Barre trying to pull back into it, I believe Rochester has scored on the power play to make it 2-0 at about the halfway mark of the first period. Just absolutely tic-tac goal on this power play with some great puck movement there. Even with Tristan Jarry in goal, it's not quite been looking so great for Wilkes-Barre early on in this game.
Which, I mean, I feel bad talking smack about the guy, but goaltending is so heavily mental, and that he's clearly like his head is not in the right place right now, which is, I'm sure, frustrating for everyone in that organization. I do want to talk a little bit more about the Hershey Bears for a second. I know that's a surprise to literally everyone that listens to this show, but before we do that, at what point do we send the Bridgeport Islanders to a farm upstate?
Could have done that a while ago by now.
At what point do we just kind of give up on the Islanders as an AHL team? And that might be mean, but the Utica Comets, for context, started the season, 0-13, I believe it was. It took them like a month to get their first win. And they currently have a 14-point lead on the Bridgeport Islanders, who have won 12 games all season.
And
they
that
are 12,
was after
33, 3-3. They've got 30 points and a .294 points percentage.
I mean, and that was
1-1 in their last 10 games.
After Utica lost their head coach because of it. Kevin Dineen. He got let go after that, and it still took them a little while to get back into it. But Bridgeport, I'm just so sorry. I wish I had more insight into it. But when you're at a 294, 51 games into the season.
You've got to just be begging for the season to end, right? Like,
strangest thing about Bridgeport is it's not like there's nothing there to be happy about. I mean, like I've seen Bridgeport play Hershey enough times this season to be able to tell you this is not a team that's not like trying or like they're putting the puck in their own net or something. I mean, I just flipped over the stats and, you know, Chris Terry is still doing Chris Terry things. He is tied for third in the AHL in points with 48 in 50 games. And that includes 16 goals. You know, if you were to zoom it out to Bridgeport here for their overall stats, you know, they got some guys like getting a career season out of Brian Pinho, who's, you know, maybe stalled a little bit. Former Hershey Bear, which is why I always like to bring that up. You know, some guys like, you know, last time I saw them, you know, I was very impressed with Samuel Bolduc. I believe that he was, you know, he chipped in a bunch of points during a series recently with Hershey. You know, I think they just find ways to lose games. And, you know, I see it every once in a while on Twitter where it's like even, you know, Bridgeport Islanders fans, or I should say New York Islanders fans, you know, say, oh, he's going to the black hole in Bridgeport. Like, you know, they had the memes of people like, you know, Mr. Krabs pulling SpongeBob back into the kitchen by his feet. And he says, I want to live. Like, it's stuff like that right now. And it stinks because, like, again, like they don't really, it's not like they have nothing down there. It's just been this inexplicably, I would even say diabolically awful season for the Bridgeport Islanders. And you can't help but just feel bad for the players that are there, the, you know, lack of attention that's being put there, perhaps. I mean, it's just it's a very sad situation.
Yeah, it feels like it's a team that's been forgotten by its parent, right? Like,
yes, that's
like
the point.
Lou Lamoriello left the Bridgeport Islanders at the store and didn't pick them up. Like,
they're just wandering the mall now.
But you just left them at the mall. I'm sure it's frustrating. I do have a question. I want to move on and talk about the North, but I do have a question about Hershey. I went to look at the goaltending stats, and it is extremely un-Hershey-like, and extremely un-Hunter Shepherd specifically, like, I believe. Is this poor goaltending? Is it that they couldn't keep up, like, the insane run that they had last season? Is it that they've lost a lot of defenders? I feel like Hershey has lost a lot of guys to the Capitals. On and off this season? Is it, you know, is it little column A, little column B? Like, obviously, as someone who I don't watch a ton of Hershey games, so I really only have the stats to look at. Is this bad defense, or is this bad goaltending, or is it
mix it all of the above? I would say it's been a little bit of that and then some. You can't help. I mean, it was interesting. Todd Nelson had a quote before Sunday's game where he said it's been a challenge, you know, all this season to keep the guys motivated. They, you know, are losing. You know, they played a lot of hockey the last few years. You know, it's been a long couple seasons for them, but it's been a mixture of a lot of things. Kind of going below the, I think, appreciation line is the fact they've lost a lot of guys in odd circumstances. Believe it or not, tremendously speaking, they have not had much interference from the Washington Capitals. The Capitals have had their 8 guys. Now, I know if there's Bears fans listening, they're going to say, but wait. And the biggest one is, yes, they've had Dylan McElrath collecting dust in the press box in Washington all season. The guy has hardly seen the ice. Hershey's captain, you know, from the last 2 Calder Cup teams, guy just, you know, absolutely brings it, you know, on the ice, off the ice, menacing presence to play against. But there's been a couple other things. The Bears lost Logan Day, you know, who did not play another game for the Bears after winning the Calder Cup. He was injured. He didn't get to, you know, really get back into shape. Signed a deal in the KHL when he got healthy and left after signing an AHL contract over the summer. Hardy Hamanaktel, you know, a highly regarded free agent acquisition by the Capitals, who, you know, had a lot of promise, helped them, you know, kind of be a little more fresh last season. He split overseas just a couple weeks ago. It was around that time when that 9-0 massacre happened with the Bears losing to the Penguins. So, you know, when it rains, it pours. Jake Massey is out long-term. If they have him back before the playoffs, it'll be surprising after, you know, a really bad leg twist. That's, you know, 3 of your guys who were, you know, pretty much mainstays of the team during last year's finals, you know, Calder Cup run. They're just gone this season, mid-season even, you know, after the season started, just for extended time, all time. They've had guys like John McDonald, Nicky Lieberman, guys that don't have a lot of AHL experience that are stepping up and filling up admirably. And another guy is Andrew Parrott, who the Bears signed to an AHL contract and recalled after playing really strongly with the South Carolina Stingrays. So it's a lot of guys that are punching, above perhaps, what they're used to, so to speak. So, they're doing a great job. I will say, development wise, these guys are taking on big roles and doing pretty well. But, it's been a combination of things. You've had pucks go in that, from point shots, innocent looking point shots, hit a defenseman skate and click perfectly past your goaltender and in the net. Like, it's been a combination of weak goals, lost players, and unfortunate breaks that I think have made Hunter Shepard and Clay Stevenson look worse than what they are. But it's something that they're actively rectifying with, I think, last weekend's pair of games, even though they lost one, looking a little bit better.
Yeah. We are going to move on. We're going to go to the North Division, but it also feels like one final kind of thought on the Bears. Is it also just like regression to the mean a little bit? Like, I feel like the standards for Hershey has been so high the past couple of years, back-to-back Calder Cup wins, basically unbeatable goaltenders last season. Is this just that they are not playing at the same god level that they were before? And Hershey fans, and I'm not calling out Hershey fans specifically because I think a lot of teams do this as well. Like, they're like, we're not automatically dominating every single team in the league. This is a disappointment, right? It's, you see it all the time. Like, I think about when the Buffalo Bills beat the Chiefs in the regular season this past year, and the Chiefs fans didn't really know what to do about it. Feels a little bit like that. But
I think that's a fair assessment. It's interesting because it's like, we're only winning games 5-4. Like, it's, sometimes you walk away from the rink not feeling as great about the wins, but it's still success and it's still there. And when it's when the 9-0 game happened, you're like, oh, this just isn't it anymore. Like, you wonder, and then they respond and they're fine. So it'll be interesting to see how it responds down the stretch here, especially as you kind of feel the weather warming and you're getting close to playoffs, which I know we're kind of going to be making a theme of this episode. So very interesting. And speaking of playoff things, Rochester has scored another goal.
God damn it. In fact, you know what? Sorry to I don't know if we're allowed to curse on this podcast. That brings me to my main issue with the North Division, which we've kind of touched on it a little bit here. The North Division is too good, and I don't like it. The
it's painful.
Are the hottest team in the league right now, basically. They are 8-2-0-0 in their last 10 games. They are sitting at the top of the North Division. They've got 70 points in 51 games, a record of 33, 14, 3, and 1. Why is the North so stupid? I don't know if I don't remember. It's been 20 minutes and I've already forgotten. I don't remember if we talked on mic or off mic about how if the Cleveland Monsters were in the Central Division, they would be at the top of that division, and they are 4th in the North right now. There is one team in the North Division that is under 500, and that is Utica, who started the season, again, 0-13 or something like that, and they are still, 2 wins under 500? We've got a 449 point percentage right now. Dina, you're our North Division correspondent. What the heck?
Pain.
Correct.
That's all I can really say. Pain. Hey, and we have Liz Child chiming in. I just wanted to bring that up. And
oh, hey, we love Liz. Shout out to Liz Child. She does great work over at Flow Hockey, and we love to see it.
Yeah, I have Liz. I have all 3 current games up on my screen right now, and she is sending a little heart hands, which right back at you. But yeah, she says the Amerks #1 in the latest power rankings from Flow Hockey for good reason. I mean, I cringe whenever I see Rochester inevitably again on the Cleveland Monsters schedule, because I just know that they're going to win, and likely that means Josh Dunn is going to do something amazing because, well, yeah, that's just the way it works against former teams. But Izak Razan 48 points in 49 games. He just
Kid's a rock
0.98. He's why he hasn't gotten more time at the NHL is just it will never not make sense to me
because Buffalo is a deeply broken franchise.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Like that's
Someone
just kind of what
needs
it
to trade for this kid. Oh my god. So yeah, so he came into the league back in 2022-23. He had 37 points in 66 games his first season, 50 points in 67 games last season, and now in 49 games again, 48 points. He has already eclipsed his goals for last season. So he had 20 goals last season, already at 25. He's already tied the number of assists he had in his rookie season. I'm just give Isaac Rozan his due justice. Just come on.
Also,
come
can
on.
we talk about Devin Levi for a second?
Yes.
He has really cool pads.
He
I just want to
does.
bring that up there. I really like
Really cool
like the
pads,
old
and
school
also a
Brown.
really cool stat line. He's got a 919 save percentage on the year right now. He has he's played in 27 games. He's got 18 wins. He's got 5 shutouts, which is leading the league. And he's 6th in save percentage in the entire NHL. In the entire AHL, excuse me. And he's doing that. This is, I believe, his 3rd pro season. Technically his 2nd pro season, because I'm not counting the 7 games he played for the Buffalo Sabres in 2022-23. This is his 2nd season with the Rochester Americans. Last season, he finished with a 927 in the regular season and a 923 in the playoffs. This season looks like he's doing basically the same thing. MVP caliber stats for me.
One of the things I think is helpful for him, definitely, and I'm just saying this as I've not watched too much of Rochester, but I'm watching some of this first period. It seems like Rochester's defense is kind of, been rising to the occasion to help him out here. As I've seen, Wilkes-Barre's had some good time in the zone, generating chances, but Rochester's really been doing a good job getting their sticks in lanes. Right as Wilkes-Barre's gearing up for like a quality shot, they just somehow get a stick in the lane. And as a goalie, Levi just made a nice save and a rebound just a couple of seconds before I started yapping about this. But I noticed that, a lot of those times, it's his defense that are really helping, coming to his aid and, at least taking away some of the difficult shots, which is a hallmark of a really skilled team. And, it's frustrating for Wilkes-Barre, and they just took a penalty. They got to kill this one off or they'll be down 4-0 at the end of the first period.
I didn't get a chance to look. Is he still rocking that old school setup?
Yes,
Levi?
I was complimenting him on it because it kind of looks pretty clean with the Amerks blue colors, and you obviously Rochester being one of the oldest AHL teams. It's a fitting look with those.
It's very outdoor rink.
Yeah, that's a good way.
And I mean that in like a complimentary way. Like I think it rules. I love the old style brown leather looking pads. Another team that I want to talk about in the North is the Laval Rocket, who I kind of have alluded to this already. I talk a lot with Scott Matler, who covers the Laval Rocket. Wonderful former coworker of mine. Laval is having like one of their best seasons that he can remember. And they are currently only 2nd in the division because, again, Rochester is stupid. They are currently, their leading scorer is 21st in the league right now with 42 points in 44 games. They're doing as well as they're doing with their leading scorer being Alex Barré-Boulet. Like, basically everyone on the Rocket is having a down year offensively, and they're still putting up pretty good numbers. Like, they are 33-15, 2-1. They've got a 6.76 points percentage, and they're 6-4 in their last 10. Now, partially, I think this is helped by the fact that Caden Primo is a terrible NHL goalie and an excellent AHL goalie.
Yes.
But this is a really good example, I feel, of sometimes in the NHL, you get a team that is just going to win by committee, right? You don't get that as much in the NHL. I feel like in the NHL, you have your like elite guys, and then there's a gap, and then there's a gap, and then there's a gap, right? sometimes in the AHL, you just get a bunch of guys that are like, well, none of us are quote unquote elite. And I'm not saying that there's no elite players on Laval, but they don't have, Chris Terry doing Chris Terry things, right? Or Isaac Rosean doing Isaac Rosean things, right? They're just kind of, everyone is showing up. And I think that's kind of fun.
So just out of curiosity, I just wanted to see, like, okay, what's the difference between, and I'm sorry if you hear a dog barking, that's the newest member of our family, who may make a appearance later, Oliver, a sweet little crazy velociraptor of a golden retriever puppy, but that's neither here nor there. So I was curious, like, okay, so Laval, who does not have, like you said, that that Isaac Rosean type of player doing that current production, like, okay, how are they looking in goals against to see, okay, is defense the bigger play here? They're only 1 goals against apart in the same number of games. So Laval Rocket has 137 goals against. Rochester has 136 goals against, but Rochester has 20 more goals for, and they're only 1 point away in the standings. So yes, truly by committee. And honestly, I love a team that is like that. I would rather have a team that's like that, because then when inevitably guys go down, injured, or they get called up, whatever, it's not as big of a loss. I would rather have a Laval Rocket team like this, personally.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, again, they don't have a 20 goal scorer yet, but they do have 8 guys who are at double digits in goals, including the defenseman Logan Mayu. He's got 11 goals on the season. So it really is, everyone's chipping in, which is a lot of fun. Do we want to talk about the Monsters for a little bit? It feels rude not to talk about the Monsters, considering that's Dina's beat, and that's also my secondary beat. I'm genuinely shocked at the performance that we've seen from the Monsters this season. They lost a ton of veterans over the summer, and somehow they look even better than they did last year. Now they're on kind of a slump at the minute, but
they're on a slump, and they have lost one of their better players for the season.
Yeah.
Owen Sillinger, done for the season, really, unfortunately. And it's like, that is a huge loss. I mean, he's looking at top 20 in the league. Yeah, Cleveland has 2 players on there. Of course, Trey Fix-Wolanski, because Fix-Wolanski does Fix-Wolanski things with 43 points. Rocco Grimaldi, also oldest 43 points. Yes. Shout out, oldest man alive. Always. We will never, ever let that die, Jay.
No, every time I talk to your husband, he's like, hey, what do you think about how Rocco Grimaldi, the oldest man alive, is doing? And I'm like, listen.
Yes.
Listen.
Yes.
He's 6 months older than me. It's fine.
Meanwhile, I hear him laughing in the other room now.
Oh, so he's tuned in. Good.
He always tunes in. He always tunes in. But yeah. But so that is a huge loss for Cleveland in terms of just, Owen Sillinger has been one of those guys that came in, wasn't a veteran player, but acted like one, was a real compass for this team, and just especially like this season, took that role on of, hey, I'm going to kind of just be, again, that compass. I wouldn't say like heart and soul, but where Owen Sillinger goes, the rest of the team goes. So that's a huge loss for them. And I'm not shocked with so many younger guys on this team. That once, that happened, like he's gone, just gone as in, again, injured, not like gone.
Sometimes I can still hear his voice.
Sometimes I can still hear his voice. I love that movie anyway, just saying. Now I'm distracted. I'm thinking of Brother Bear now. Gosh darn it.
Here's the thing about Owen Sillinger, and this might be a hot take, I don't know. That's the future captain of the Cleveland Monsters.
That is not a hot take at all.
He has such Boone Jenner energy. He has that, just Swiss Army knife, plays all over the lineup. I've been really enjoying watching his younger brother, Cole Sillinger, obviously one of the rising stars for the Columbus Blue Jackets in the NHL. I've been really enjoying watching Cole Sillinger kind of grow as a leader this season at the, mature age of 21, 22, maybe. And watching Owen Sillinger, like, obviously he made his NHL debut this season, watching him with the Monsters, I'm like, oh, okay. Cole Sillinger comes by this extremely honestly. I don't know if it's a family thing. I don't know if it's just that he learned it from his big brother, from his dad, whatever. But like,
it's got to be from his
family
dad.
Of leaders.
Yeah, it's got to be from his dad, who.
Right.
It's like, I hate to use the term journeyman, but he was in so many different locker rooms and just he picked up on so many different things. So you have to think that the kids saw that, they learned from it. But Owen's great. I was devastated whenever I saw that he was going to be out. Also losing, I would assume Denton Mateychuk will not be seen in an AHL jersey.
He's ours now. You can't have him.
Ever again.
No,
ever again.
Hey, you got Luca Del Babalus back, which I was not 100% sure was going to happen. I thought we might be keeping him as well, but
that was a good. So whenever Jay says we, he's talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets, the NHL affiliate for the Monsters. But Denton Mateychuk has only played 27 games in the American Hockey League this season, I should say, because he did come in the playoffs. He is still 5th in points for, I almost said Columbus, for Cleveland. Remember, a defenseman, rookie defenseman. Please, Columbus. I would say, please, Columbus, bring him back, but Columbus is on the bubble for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, we need him. We need him. We can't spare him. He's still 4th among defensemen scoring, for rookie defenseman scoring in the AHL this season. The only rookie defenseman with more points than him is Luca Cagnoni in San Jose, who's got 37 points in 48 games. Scott Morrow in Chicago, who has 35 points in 47 games. Tristan Luneau, who has 35 points in 37 games. And then Denton Mateychuk has 25 points in 27 games. And he hasn't played in the AHL since Christmas? December 19th was his last game in the AHL. You'll probably get him back for playoffs, in fairness. But
fingers crossed that.
Yeah, which I think also ties into the Monsters having the slump, is that they did lose their number one defenseman and their leading scorer, Luca Del Babalus, was leading the entire AHL in scoring when he got called up. And also losing Owen Sillinger, who is, I know Stefan Matteau wears the C, but I feel like Owen Sillinger is right up there in terms of leadership. It's a tough loss, right?
Well, I forget which game it was. It was one game very recently. Head coach Trent Vogelhuber was quoted as saying that it's been an immature response from his team. That just
sometimes the fun uncle goes away and you don't know what to do with yourself.
Yeah. But one thing I did want to bring up about sorry, I got totally distracted there. In a game, I believe it was 3 days ago, Ole Julian Bjorkvik-Holm, one of the young defenders of this team, took a really, really, really nasty spill into the boards. And Belleville Senators forward Hayden Hodgson actually has been suspended for 4 games because of that. He was taken off on a stretcher. I really haven't heard anything else regarding that. The only word is that he is out indefinitely. If any of you have been following the AHL for any length of time, it's practically impossible to get real updates about players out of the American Hockey League. So at this point, I'm assuming no news is good news. So hopefully he's recovering well. But Hayden Hodgson will continue to miss He's not playing in Belleville's game tonight. He won't be playing on Friday against Manitoba, and he will not be playing Saturday versus Laval.
Yeah, having watched Hayden Hodgson play in the playoffs last season, he was with the Ontario Reign. I am unsurprised by this. He is a very good disruptive player, let's say, and he does walk that line, and usually he does a better job walking it than hospitalizing a player. But he was part of that line in Ontario where they would just kind of crash and bang and real Bash Brothers type stuff, which again, maybe a hot take I frankly could do without. I like goals. I like skill. I don't necessarily like guys being hospitalized. But hopefully Oli Julian home is okay and will not be gone for too long. We're going to talk about the Central Division and how that is just as stupid as the North, but in the opposite way. But before we do that, I do just want to thank our show sponsor, Document Doctors, and I want to share a little bit about them. Is your business growing beyond the four walls of your office? As businesses grow, so do the challenges of keeping people trained, safe, and supportive. Document Doctors is a proud sponsor of the Calder's Calling podcast and the Calder Times. They offer affordable solutions to help optimize your business and keep the good times rolling. They offer content-focused solutions such as training document creation, back-office process optimization, policy and procedure development, and much, much more. Support the podcast and the Calder Times by visiting them at documentdoctorsllc.com. And don't forget to mention us when talking to their team of contentologists. Shop and support small businesses today. That is documentdoctorsllc.com.
I have heard on good authority that they're getting a pretty spiffy new website soon. So,
you love to see that.
I
so
love to
go to
see that.
LLC and check out their fancy new website.
Once it's ready. I'll let you know once it's ready.
I've been go check out their fancy new website.
Yeah, Doug, if you're watching, hey, he's been a longtime friend of mine since 2003, and just super great friend, super great person, company to work with. And he's
day one supporter of the Calder Times.
Day one supporter, and I will forever be thankful. Dr. Doug, I appreciate you.
Do you want to talk about what's up with the Central Division? Because how is this still happening? I feel like last season this was the same thing where basically like 3 teams failed upwards into the playoffs in the Central Division, and it feels like a similar thing is going to happen here. So they have 3 teams that are under 500 right now. Rockford Ice Hogs, Manitoba Moose, Iowa Wild. Again, just to reiterate, the 4th place Monsters would be second in the Central Division. I had the thing sorted wrong earlier. The Texas Stars are doing better than the Monsters. They've got a 615 points percentage, but they have 3 points less than the Monsters. So, like, the Monsters would still be in first in the Central, but second in points percentage. And then after that, it really is just kind of a Milwaukee is there, Grand Rapids is there, the Wolves are there, and then the rules say that Rockford, Manitoba, and Iowa have to be there, but they really are just kind of there so they don't get fined, I feel like.
Oh, no.
What is up with the Central Division? Why is it like this?
Can we talk about the elephant in the room with the Chicago Wolves?
Please. I love to talk about elephants in rooms.
The fact that they reaffiliated after that disastrous experiment last season, and now, look, they're winning games.
Who could possibly have seen this coming?
I mean, it's a 27-20-2 record, but again, they're restarting. In my mind, they're restarting the team because these players weren't there last year, but they have an over 500. They're winning in 22 games in regulation. So it's I'm excited for the fans in Chicago. I hated that experiment last year. I felt terrible for anyone having to be involved with that because that was an unenviable situation. So amazing for Chicago. One thing I kind of want to talk about is the fantastic coaching of Dan Watson for the Grand Rapids Griffins. That's another team that has really turned it around. He was the head coach in Toledo, which is the next level under in the Detroit Red Wings affiliation organization, whatever. It's been a while since I've talked hockey, so sorry. But here he is already he went to the All-Star game because at that time, Grand Rapids was number 1 in the Central Division. It's fantastic because I've been a fan of his since a few seasons ago, and I went to an ECHL game between his Toledo Walleye and Jason Payne's Cincinnati Cyclones. And I got a chance to talk to both head coaches, and I'm just standing there like, both of these guys, they're players, love them, absolutely love them, would run through walls, would run through cement walls, vibranium walls, if you're a Marvel fan. They would do anything for these coaches, and this turnaround is just one of many reasons, ways that they're showing it. Plus, you got Sebastian Cosa sitting up there with a 2.4, goals against average. He has one shutout.
Normal numbers. It's fine. I feel like getting the coach to buy, I feel like buying in on the coach is such a that's 75% of the battle in the AHL, right? We've seen poor coaching undo teams. I also want to give a shout out to Pascal Vincent, who obviously did not have the tenure in Columbus that he was hoping for, but he has been an excellent coach for the Laval Rocket this year. And I also feel like Todd Nelson is a huge part of Hershey's success, right? A, he's a good coach, but B, the guys buy in. The guys listen to him. He's a fantastic quote with the media. And I think, there's going to be a day where he's not coach of the Hershey Bears, and that's going to be a very sad day for, I think, every single Bears fan. So don't discount coaching in the AHL, because it is, I would argue, coaching in the AHL is much more important than coaching in the NHL.
And I just want to say thanks again to Liz Child for kind of backing up what I said about Dan Watson doing fantastic work in Toledo. That's why when that spot opened up in Grand Rapids, instead of looking elsewhere, they just promoted from within.
And you had to give a shout out to the assistant coaches, guys behind the scenes there with coaching staffs as well, since there's a lot of times where I'm just thinking about Hershey specifically, since you brought up Todd Nelson. You have guys like, I hate to say Todd Nelson is like the Hershey trifecta, and that, he's already won a Calder Cup before somewhere else as a coach. He's a former Bears player, one season during his playing days. And, he knows a lot of the guys there. When he came in, he knew a lot of the guys, and, obviously, was a coach for some guys like Hershey's vice president of hockey operations, Brian Helmer. So, it's these connections, but then you have, other guys like Patrick Weller and Nick Bootland, all former Bears, almost had the same pedigree type of thing. So it's, it's just as much, who you have, as well as, your staff that supports them too, that, makes the ship sail smoothly.
I'm just watching Providence and Bridgeport right now, and they're getting a little feisty there. It's still a 0-0 game. About 17. I saw the
same thing.
Yeah, it looks like a questionable hit by two of the, I can't see who's down for Providence, but two of the Bridgeport guys kind of.
They just showed a replay on my end of things here. I believe that is Max Jones that was down and injured for a few seconds there.
Was that Wyatt Newpower in on it? Yep. I can't say I'm surprised.
I was going to say, many such cases.
A former Cleveland Monster, I believe he was with Grand Rapids after he was with Cleveland, if I'm remembering right.
That sounds correct.
One of those players that you love to have on your team, but you hate to play with.
Yeah, one season with Cleveland, 3 with Grand Rapids.
Yeah,
Speaking
but
of guys
for this season.
By the way, I just wanted to make a point of this just because I was watching this. Brian Pinot, I don't think has ever lost a faceoff in his entire life.
He's got a 100% faceoff percentage.
don't think I've ever seen it. Like, I noticed it was him out to start this penalty kill, and it was this pretty nice battle for a face-off, and he just, it's just straight back. It's not even like it was a battle. And it's Patrick Brown, who, if I'm not mistaken, has had some NHL time, if I'm thinking correctly there. Oh man, that's maybe one that's a questionable win for Providence, face-off wise, perhaps. And as all things seem to go for Bridgeport, one thing doesn't go right, and Providence scores a goal. Tic-tac-toe.
I don't think the bus ever had any wheels on it, but I want to touch on Milwaukee
I'm way behind
really briefly before we move on to the Pacific Division, because we still have one more division to cover. I fully thought that Milwaukee was going to be dead in the water this year. Yaroslav Askarov did so much heavy lifting for them last season, has been excellent for the Barracuda this season, which again we'll talk about in a second here. But Milwaukee seems to have just kind of gained another phenomenal goalie somehow. In Matthew Murray, not that Matt Murray.
Matt Murray.
Matt Murray II has a .926 save percentage this season, which I believe is good for second in the entire AHL. The only goalie that's better than him is, relevant, the Providence Bruins have Michael DiPietro, who's got a .927 right now. So they lose to Skarov. Everything is terrible. Nope. Here comes Matt Murray to just decide that he's going to be an elite goalie in the AHL, which I think is fun.
He was with Texas, wasn't he?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and guess what? When he was with Texas, they were extremely good.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I do want to bring up before I forget about Milwaukee, I just want to say congratulations to Cal O'Reilly, who has reached the 1,000 game milestone in the American Hockey League. 1,003 games dating back to the 2005-2006 regular season. So many congratulations to him. What a career so far.
Phenomenal.
So far, he's
his rookie season.
He's my brother's age.
His rookie season was 2005-2006. He played 2 games. His first full season was the season after that, where he played 78. He's not quite the oldest man alive, but, he was born in 1986, which I think means makes him 38, I want to say, 37, 38. He's still got 33 points in 49 games this season. I did jinx the Milwaukee winning streak last year, and I'm not sorry about it. I would do it again if I had the chance. I don't like streaks. They make me nervous.
I just had to bring it up.
But, Cal O'Reilly is still, I think he's second on the team in scoring. It's like Curtis McKenzie with the Dallas Stars last year was excellent for the Stars, despite being, I think, literally the oldest guy in the AHL last season. So I think it's fun. Shout out to Cal. I don't think he'll hit another 1,000 games, but hopefully he's still got some gas in the tank, because I don't know if that all-time games played record is in reach for him off the top of my head, but 1,000 games is pretty darn good.
I'm currently bringing up the record book, so don't mind me.
I know. I'm like, how quickly can I Google?
Providence just scored another goal, a nice little backhander. So Providence up 2-0 against Bridgeport. But yeah, beauty of a backhander if you're watching on Flow Sports.
Providence is one of those weird teams where I always feel like they are worse than they are, and then I look and I'm like, oh no, they're fine. And I don't know whether that's again just because I don't pay a ton of attention to the Atlantic, because obviously my teams are in the Pacific and the North, but Providence is such a weird team. I feel like they're always
never bad. I feel like that's the right way to say it. Is they've been very strong the last couple of seasons. They just can't string together when it comes to a playoff run. I think they've been the last 2 playoffs. I think they lost in the play-in round. I could be wrong about that for last season, perhaps, but they fanned out far too early for a team that's as difficult to play against as they truly are. I mean, they always usually are strong defensively. They usually, have a strong, obviously they have Michael DiPietro, who is very good, lest we forget, and Brandon Bussey is, also very solid, good tandem. They usually just have a crew of, a few underrated guys. Vinny Lettieri, who Dina will remember was my number one player when we did our fantasy thing a few years ago.
Yep.
He's my boy, my go-to. A lot of great guys. Fabian Lysell. It's a lot of guys that I feel like have been with the Providence Bruins for a long time. So that Georgi Merkulov, somehow, like, the Boston Bruins organization is just one of the hardest to break into. I think they're one of those AAA elite organizations.
It's so wild because Boston reliably has about 2.5 prospects because they've been so good for so long, right? They don't have a lot of high end prospects, I always feel like, and then you blink and you're like, well, Providence should kind of be going the way of Bridgeport, right? Because they have a similar number of prospects as Bridgeport. But you're right. Fabian Lysell, I think, is a phenomenal player. I love Merkulov. Like, somehow they keep finding these guys, which is, again, really frustrating, but is always kind of fun when they succeed despite not having the kind of the lottery luck, let's say. Dina has pulled up the all-time leaders. I also did, and then immediately lost the tab. So I'm going to hand it over to Dina for this on where Cal O'Reilly is in terms of that all-time games played record.
All right. So to start the season, he was 12th all-time in the American Hockey League. He now sits at 8, unseating Rob Murray, who played 15 seasons from, wow, this seems so odd, 1988 to 2003. That just thinking of the 80s to 2000s, that's insane. So he's behind Rob Murray. He unseated Bill Needham from 1956 to 71, 15 seasons with 981 games. So, but the most all-time, Willie Marshall, 20 seasons from 1952 to 1972, 1,205 games. Now, Cal O'Reilly, if we go back to that, 2-game season back in 2005, he's been in 17 seasons. Could he possibly get it? Maybe. I think
Doable.
At
this will be season 18, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so it is
2 more, maybe 3 more seasons.
Yeah,
because I don't think we can expect him to play every single game, but it's definitely doable. And I also want to point out, I did find the list in my 700 tabs. He is currently the leading, the active leading all-time games played leader. I can say words. I do it for a living.
Because
Brett Sutter retired this season. He was the previous record holder. He's at 1,090. Brett Sutter, who I believe is currently the head coach of the Calgary Wranglers, because the Flames organization is having some issues with their coaching. So Cal O'Reilly could very well be the all-time leader for games played in the AHL. But
also, real quick, just because Corey brought it up in the private, our little private stream chat here, Brian Helmer, who we talked about earlier on with the Bears organization, number 3 all-time, 1,117. I would have laughed if it was 11, so it was just 1,111. But yeah, from 1993 to 2013, 19 total seasons. So just another list with a whole bunch on it. Also, some other active players here. Cameron Gaunce, when at the beginning of the season was tied for 35th of all time, and Chris Terry at the time of the beginning of the season, 38th all time.
See, this can't be right because Rocco Grimaldi is not on this list. And we know that he's the oldest man alive, but
he hasn't played his entire career in the American Hockey League.
Yeah. Which I assume is also why Curtis McKenzie is not on this list, or he's not in the top 50 anyway. But Corey, I believe you also want to talk about the a throwback team for a second, and then we'll move on to the Pacific.
Yeah, so you guys got my head spinning, the gears spinning, so to speak, by talking about Brian Helmer, because over the weekend, the Charlotte Checkers, and it happened to be against the Hershey Bears, so I loved this little throwback connection. I'm dating myself by how long I've watched the American Hockey League. The Charlotte Checkers did a throwback night on Saturday where they became the Charlotte River Rats for one game only. And there's pictures of the jerseys they wore, but for astute longtime AHL fans, the Charlotte Checkers were a franchise that was relocated from the old Albany River Rats franchise, which was, of course, a longtime staple of the AHL, dating back to at least the 90s that I can think of off the top of my head. Fun connection with Brian Helmer and current Charlotte Checkers coach Gordy Kinnear. They were line mates for the Albany River Rats during the 1994-95 Calder Cup season that the River Rats won way back in the day as players together, which was only a couple years into Brian Helmer's illustrious AHL career. So you love to see a tie. They missed an opportunity, though, by not having those two guys team up to do a ceremonial puck drop of any kind that I saw during that game as I was watching, which I was disappointed about. But the Bears and the River Rats, perennial longtime foes. The Bears seem to play them, 12 times every season on the regular back in the day until they were relocated to Charlotte. There you go. There's the jersey. So the difference with this one is that you can't really see it super well, but on the River Rat itself, it says Charlotte across the jersey instead of what would have been Albany back in the old days. But totally fun throwback.
I love the AHL. I love that jersey. It's great. That jersey is truly great.
And there's just a lot of teams that are just these throwback, sillier, from a sillier era of the AHL, perhaps you may say, of just the old days where there was a lot of like big personality. It's probably personality more see like ECHL teams have with, kind of more unusual names and things of that nature. The River Rats always come to mind. It wasn't just derivative of the NHL team. There's a little more pizzazz and personality back in the old days.
It's got real kind of Savannah Bananas energy to it,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Or what's the ECHL the Ghost Pirates? Savannah Ghost Pirates.
Yes.
Ghost Pirates. Yes.
It's just fun. I do have to issue a small correction to myself in that I mixed up my oldest men alive. Curtis McKenzie is not the oldest player in the league. That honor goes to Adam Cracknell, who I believe is retired this year. Curtis McKenzie is, I think, a year older than me. Adam Cracknell was born in 1985, so he was the oldest player in the league last year. I had gotten them mixed up, which I'm sure Gary will remember forever. Every time Adam Cracknell is brought up, every time Curtis McKenzie is brought up, I'm gonna get it. But
so he apparently has not retired. He is playing in Slovakia, where he is currently over a point per game.
Oh, he's sure.
In HK, I'm gonna totally butcher this. My apologies. HK Poprad. He is the captain in 51 games. He has 33 goals, 23 assists for 16 points, 14 penalty minutes, and is a +7.
Sure, why not?
He's still playing, just going.
I mean, Jaromir Jagr's still going, and that dude's like 85 now. So, I think this is going to be Jagr's last year. But
you would think, but shout out to Adam Cracknell.
Yeah, shout out to Adam Cracknell. If you're listening, sup.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Pacific Division, because I feel like the Pacific Division is kind of topsy-turvy this year. Like, the teams that are typically pretty good, I feel like are struggling this year. The teams that were at the bottom of the division last year are kind of doing a lot better. So, like, obviously the San Jose Barracuda wins the award for like most improved team this year, I feel like. In no part because of Yaroslav Askarov, who we talked about before. But like the Ontario Reign are one of the hottest teams in the league right now. They're at the top of the division. Colorado Eagles, who were very kind of mediocre last year, right up there with them. Then the Wranglers and the Firebirds are looking pretty good but surprisingly mortal. Again, kind of in the same vein as the Hershey Bears, I feel like, is that the Coachella Valley Firebirds specifically have been so good basically since their inception into the league that when I look at them like fourth in the division, I'm like, oh, weird, what happened? Why are they bad this year? And they're not. But it's the Pacific Division is kind of a weird one. It's what is happening.
We also can't forget that Coachella Valley lost their head coach and one of their assistant coaches to the Seattle Kraken, both Dan Bylsma, Jessica Campbell, getting that promotion. The Bylsma news came, I believe, during the season last year, and then the actual move was made in the off season. Yeah, so despite all that, they're still third in the Pacific.
And I feel like there was a lot of roster turnover for them this year. Like, I would have to double check that against the stats, but I feel like they lost a fair amount of players. And there's been a lot of up and down. They're currently lots of God. You love to see it, Liz. Andrew Podorowski is with the Barracuda this year. He was with the Firebirds for the last 2 seasons, and I believe with Chicago the year before that. Question mark.
Yes.
So it might be the Corey Perry curse of the
No, because he actually has won.
Oh, he won with Chicago, right?
And Charlotte.
He won with Chicago and Charlotte. Okay.
Yes. Chicago and Charlotte. I'm pretty sure. And just like that, Providence is up 4-0 over Bridgeport.
Man.
To the surprise if I say who exactly.
Let me again. I've lost regular.
Sorry,
listeners
we're getting
Locked On Blue Jackets. My other podcast will know this. I am the king of opening tabs and immediately losing them, or opening tabs and then closing them immediately before I need them. But
we need to hire Liz as our official fact checker.
As our fact checker, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Podorowski's 5th finals appearance in 6 years. He is not the Corey Perry. Do not put that on.
Dude's a winner. I've been thoroughly enjoying him on the Barracuda this year. He is just a ton of fun to watch. He's one of those like good veteran guys that people love, but also he puts his money where his mouth is, right? He's been a real boon for the Barracuda this season.
He's just consistently good. He's always like right around point per game or player. Oh, Liz saying it's a stat she learned from Curtis McKenzie.
Curtis McKenzie.
And we do have a couple of people asking some Hershey questions. We will get to those. I don't want you thinking I'm skipping over you. We will get to those here shortly once we get done talking about the Pacific Division. But yeah, Andrew Podorowski, as Andrew Rinaldi, one of the hosts of the AHL pre-show, which comes out on Fridays, as we have said before, justice for Potts. He deserves to be in the NHL way more than he is, but he is a fantastic and fun AHL player.
I always put Andrew Podorowski in the same kind of category of player as TJ Tynan.
Yes.
Of probably should be in the NHL, but I'm real glad to get to watch him in the AHL. Right? Again, TJ Tynan, who is religiously leading the league in assists, or is close to the league lead in assists, made history a few years ago. I think he had the most assists that anyone has had in the AHL since the 80s. And yeah, Andrew Podorowski is kind of in that conversation for me as well of is he the best player in the America? Is he the best American Hockey League player? By which I mean the best player that is not probably not going to get called up, right? He's not a prospect.
Yes.
So, is Andrew Podorowski the best AHL player? People are saying this, and by people I mean me.
I'm sitting here agreeing, very, 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 very much so. I'll pull out. I only have one bobblehead Funko Pop, and so I'm going to say he is agreeing with you as well. I need my bobblehead from work, or go downstairs and get my Treyfix Wolanski bobblehead, and he'll agree with you too.
I think that's kind of all of the. We've done a pretty good run around of the league, I think. So, do we want to do some listener questions?
Can I bring up one thing about the Calgary Wranglers?
Please. Is it about Devin Cooley and his rabbit?
Wait, what?
Not Devin. Yeah, Devin Cooley. Devin Cooley has a pet rabbit. He's called Tito. He's perfect. He has his own charity, and it's delightful. Tito Cooley on Instagram. Go follow him.
How do you spell that? Because I need to follow this account.
Tito.
Oh, Tito. Okay.
Cooley.
I need to see this. This
I believe is the
perfection.
Let me just pull it up to make sure.
Oh my. Okay, I need to share this. Of course, I'll share it.
Okay, so for people who are listening, it's Tito.Cooley on Instagram, but he's perfect. Yep, there he is.
Look at this magnificent animal. The little hat, I am dead.
Yeah, he's perfect. Tito Cooley is my favorite NHL player.
Oh, Liz, yes, Tito Cooley supremacy. I was going to talk about Martin Firk and how he's doing so well.
I did want to make sure that you were aware of Tito Cooley because.
Oh, and there you are following.
There's a fight in the Rochester Wilkes-Barre game. Things you love to see. Mark Johnstone and I couldn't get a number on the. Johnstone with the decision on that one, I believe.
Yep.
I forget his first
name.
That's got to be a try to turn the momentum kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Graham Slaggert was.
Many such cases.
Yes. But yeah, I literally was just going to bring up the fact that Martin Firk is still around, right? For those, I love him just because of his name. It's fantastic. But also, I'll never forget back when I first started really getting involved in watching the American Hockey League. He was in the All-Star game, and that was the one where he had that absolute bomb in the hardest shot competition, and it's what made me really fall in love with how the American Hockey League does things, because it was just so cool. But yeah, he's actually 10th in scoring in the American Hockey League
still
right now. 45 points.
Yep, still holds the world record for hardest shot, I believe. I don't believe the NHL All-Star Game has produced anyone that's beaten his hardest shot yet.
I think
now I'm heading to Google.
Yep, which I believe that Ethan Frank also technically holds the record for the fastest lap, because I don't know that anyone in the NHL game beat his time from the last AHL game. I might be wrong.
No, nobody beat it this past or the in the AHL.
He won this year, didn't he?
Ethan Frank did not
believe anyone in the last NHL All-Star game was faster than Frank, so.
He was not. They were not. No, that was my one reason why I watched it, to see if anybody would be close to Ethan Frank, and they got pretty close. I can't remember who it was who won it, but he actually did come pretty close.
So the world record actually belongs to a player in the KHL.
Oh, well, fair enough.
Alexander Ryazantsev holds the record for the hardest shot at 114.127 miles per hour, set in 2012.
Jeez. Was he shooting with an iron stick or something?
I don't know. That's so yeah, I mean, and this now, that is just what Google is telling me right now. And the, okay, Liz is coming back in with Matthew Savoy won the fastest skater this year. So per Wikipedia, that KHL player has the record, but Guinness World Records is recording it as 110.3, a slap shot by Denis Kuyash of Avangard Omsk in the KHL All-Star Skills Competition. It doesn't say what year, so it's either... So, yeah, it depends on who you ask, but North American is Martin Ferk at 109. Yeah, 109.2 in 2020. And then the NHL is Zdeno Chara at 108.8 set in 2012.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We talked about that that fight in the Rochester Wilkes-Barre Scranton game. Yeah, it did turn the tide. Wilkes-Barre Scranton
like,
with the goal.
I guess we'll score a goal now. I don't know that I necessarily, and we will get to questions in a second here, but this is again, maybe a hot take. I don't know if this is just Jay's hot takes episodes, but the fact that people always like credit a fight for turning the tide in a game always makes me think of like, well, surely the fight then killed the momentum for the other team because there are two guys fighting.
Yep.
You know? So anyway, we don't have to get into that right now. Otherwise it'll turn into Jay rants about fighting for 25 minutes. Dina, if I turn it over to you, I believe we have questions about the Hershey Bears to answer.
Yes, we do. And if anyone out there has any other questions, comments, whatever, please send them on in, comment, or if you are on Twitter, just kind of go over there and leave something, comment on Facebook, whatever. But first we have Nate Temple. Now, Nate has been waiting for a bit. This is from about 23 minutes ago. So sorry, Nate. But he says, Corey, what do you think is the biggest reason outside of no Mac, as in Dylan McElrath, I'm assuming, right? Yes. As to why the Bears defense is so easy to play against. Again, that's from Nate Temple over on YouTube. Thanks so much for the question.
It's a good question. I just think it's been a little bit more of like a size thing in some ways. That, you know, there's no Hamon Octel, there's no Dylan McElrath. You know, McElrath sets the tone so much with his big size and fit. Like, you fear going into the boards with him, I feel like, just because he's such a big guy. And the Bears, you know, they're a little more skilled, they're a little smaller, they maybe just don't have that excellent puck moving defenseman like Lucas Johansson in last couple years teams, and they just lost kind of some of their teeth in some ways, which, you know, it's not a shot against any of the guys, because I think that, you know, Nicky Lieberman, John McDonald, Andrew Parrott, they've all done pretty good jobs for guys with, you know, minimal AHL experience coming into this group. And they still have, you know, the quality guys. You know, Ethan Bear's been really good. I think he's been kind of underrated on this team just because he now leads the team in points from the blue line. Just took that over. The guy assists on like almost every single goal, some way, somehow. It's impressive. And I think it's just a down year contributing from the guys that are back. I mean, it's just been, you know, there's more offensive defensemen on this team than there are defensive defensemen, and it shows sometimes. So I think it's just kind of this net difference on the blue line, which I think is contributing to why. And it's just been, you know, sometimes it's bad luck, and it's a little bit of, you know, I think they're just kind of maybe mentally drained at times, which, you know, I was working with minimal vacation time for like 3 years in a row, maybe I'd be feeling that way too, perhaps. So I think it's just kind of a net reflection of their losses and the changes up front, which is it's interesting. It's definitely unlike anything that you can see from a team year over year. It's just a very detailed question, I think. It's all in the details. There's where the answer is.
And there's one more from Skylar Deal. Skylar, I'm constantly seeing their interactions on X. I appreciate all that, the shares and everything. But Skylar asks, with the Washington Capitals looking to make a deep playoff run this year, how do you see that impacting Hershey for the playoffs player-wise?
Oh, I saw Corey's life flash before his eyes for a second there.
Oh, gosh. It shouldn't impact them at all.
Flashbacks from last season.
It shouldn't impact them at all. I mean, it's, you know, fingers crossed, Lord willing, the Capitals stay healthy, which is always the $1 million question with the Washington Capitals. it shouldn't be. It should just stay the same way that it is. They shouldn't be wanting to mess with anything at all. And last year we had a little bit of a scare when the Capitals were playing while the Bears were idle, where you just kind of wish the Capitals would fan out as fast as possible so that all of our precious boys would come back to Hershey. The run begins, type of thing. So hopefully Washington can stay healthy. There's no reason to worry about anything, but it is interesting. The Capitals and the Bears have never had a coinciding deep playoff run at the same time. Maybe in 2010, the Capitals did fade out like in the second round, I think, that year when they were both like God mode teams at both levels. It was very scary. The Capitals kind of faded a little faster than the Bears did, I think, in the second round or so. Softened up the Montreal Canadiens so that my Flyers could have a run to the Stanley Cup Finals that was amazing, and I miss. It was a reality possibility. But yeah, I think that it'll be just a health thing. And the Capitals, Sonny Milano is hopefully progressing towards being injury-free Washington Capitals hockey coming up here soon, which would just be glorious and unheard of and amazing, and force another player to come down to Hershey. And I see what the dog doing.
We have, this dog is massive, but we have a podcast debut. Oh, he's not going to stay on my lap long. Okay, so if you would believe this, he's going to be shy now. This is Oliver.
He says no photos, Dina.
He is coming up on 6 months old. Why are you shaking? He is like legitimately like nervous. Hey, Oliver.
Stage fright?
He has stage fright.
It's so tough to be a baby.
Can I? Oh, here he. Oh, nope. He might have saw his face for a second. Can I swing around this way? Are you going to let me swing around this way? Can you see the face?
Oh, there he is.
Aww.
I don't know why he's being such a nervous little sir right now. But yeah, so this is his first season. Why are you? He's never like this. Hi, what's up? He might just be tired. I don't know. It is late.
Listen, me too, buddy.
But yeah, this is Oliver. He is
This is Oliver, or also known as Gary Weinheimer Jr. in our staff Discord.
Yes. So this little guy was born back in September. Oh, look at that face. It might be all of the lights. He's not used to all of the lights being on here. But yeah, if you watched previous seasons of this show or the Holy Grail, you might have seen Matthew, the Cocker Spaniel. He passed away over the off season, and then Oliver came into our life, kind of like fell in our laps, and now here he is. So I just wanted him to make his big podcast debut. So here is the puppy tax.
Yes.
And he's kind of fading away into the green screen. The cat has not moved.
The cat has moved. She was hanging out on the arm of the chair for a minute. She was sort of Sir appearing in this podcast, but it's tough to be small and sleepy. I too wish I could take a nap at 5:30.
Yeah, it's 8:30 over here, and I think he's done again. Fading into the green screen. I'm sorry, Oliver. But
I think. Hi. Did we have another question or?
That's it. That's all the questions.
Cool. In that case, I think that's kind of all we've got for today. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed having us back. We will try to do this. We will try to not take another 8-month break on the show, but we can't make any promises. But if you want to check out our written coverage of the AHL, please check us out online at thecaldertimes.com. You can follow us all on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. That's all at The Calder Times. I don't know if we're on Blue Sky yet, but
I'm working on it
soon enough. If you haven't already, hit subscribe on YouTube. Find us on your favorite podcatcher. Leave us a like. Leave us a comment. Don't forget to tell your friends where they can find all the AHL hockey chatter their hearts desire. We'd like to extend a final thank you to our sponsor, Document Doctors. Until next week, I've been Jay. That's been Corey. That's been Dina. That's been Oliver. We have been Calder's Calling, and we'll see you guys next time.